much for being here to join us for our third annual Environmental Commission Forum. Very excited to have a standing room only. This is very exciting, and it's a wonderful topic, solar. We've got a great group of speakers, and we want to also thank all the vendors and people representing various solar companies who are great resources as well. I just want to take a moment before we start to, by the way, my name is David Cohen. I'm the chairman of the Environmental Commission for the city of Calabasas. I want to just take a moment to thank my fellow commissioners who volunteer so much time and energy, and we as a city are very fortunate to have such wonderful volunteers. The other commissioners who are here with me are Julie Elginer, Andrea, go ahead and stand up, please. Lisa Brackelman Wilder, Lisa Wilder, Andrea Diamond, Julie Shai-Sobel, who's representing the right side of the room, and we've got two student members who are both with us as well, Anna Winter and Alex Barr. So very happy to have these two students who are so involved, not only with us and with the whole city, but they're very, very wonderful leaders at Calabasas High School as well. And I just want to also mention that in the back of the room, there are 3x5 cards and pencils. Please do jot down notes. There's going to be a series of speakers, and then I'll read the questions and let the various panelists give answers to these. So please take the time, and you can pass these out to any of us commissioners. Without any further ado, I'm going to introduce a friend, the mayor of the city, David Shapiro, who's going to give some introductory comments.
Thank you, David, and thanks to everybody for being here. This is tremendous. I want to introduce a couple more people who have yet to be introduced. That is a couple of my colleagues who I see here tonight. Mayor Pro Tem Lucy Martin, who's here, and Council Member Fred Gaines. And I know the rest of my colleagues will be here shortly as well. Also, City Manager Tony Corrales, thank him for all of his hard work. And of course, Mayor Emeritus Dennis Washburn's in the house tonight. And I do want to acknowledge this is a program that is a tremendous program, and obviously based upon the number of people here tonight is very important to a large amount of people in the city. This is a Public Works event, and our Director of Public Works, Robert Yalda, is here. I want to thank him, Robert. And Alex Farasetti for all of his hard work as well. And as David already mentioned, this has really been spearheaded by the Environmental Commission. I want to thank Chairman David Cohen and all the Environmental Commission for their hard work for tonight, putting on tonight. I want to thank the solar companies in the back also for helping to sponsor this event, and thank Cal State University Northridge, the Sustainability Institute, for providing technical information for tonight. The City of Calabasas supports renewable energy, and according to it's in our 2030 general plan, we are very interested in hearing from the public and hearing the options available to us here tonight as well. We've established as a city a streamlined permit and inspection process to help make alternative energy sources such as solar easier for those in the community who want them. And I'll ask you tonight after the Q&A, which there'll be a panel here after the presentation, to go around in the back, take a look at the various vendors, talk to them, ask them questions, and determine which, if any, are best for you. Do your own homework. They're all here for you here tonight as well. And without any further ado, I also want to introduce the panel of speakers we have tonight here. We have Dr. Helen Cox, and there we are, and Chris Blevins from the Cal State University Northridge Institute for Sustainability. So thank you very much for being here tonight. Please come on up. Thank you. I don't want to tell any jokes. Pleasure. Thank you.
So hello and welcome. Can everybody hear me okay? It's a pleasure to be here and to have a chance to speak to you about solar energy. And we just have done a couple of workshops in Thousand Oaks. We have another one in Culver City and Simi Valley. So we're doing a fair number actually throughout the LA region. And the point of these workshops is to really let you know what a good deal solar is. And hopefully we'll sort of convince you of that, at least for most of you. But our plan is not really necessarily to sell you solar. It's to help you make that decision wisely. So that's why I'm here. And I'll introduce my fellow speaker here, Chris Blevins. He's a colleague and works with the solar consulting company, Pick My Solar, and they're outside. You'll be able to have a chance to talk to them later if you're interested. So these are the things that I'm going to cover in this evening's seminar. So I'm sure that a lot of you have many questions on solar, and often I hear that the reason that people maybe haven't gone solar but are thinking about it and maybe been thinking about it for a long time is that there's a lot of confusion in the solar market, in the sense that homeowners are not really clear on all the terminology that's involved with solar. And sometimes, you know, one person will try to sell them one thing and someone else tries to sell them something else, and you're kind of comparing apples and oranges and you're not really quite sure where to go. So what I'm hoping to do is to help you navigate through that kind of maze of information, some of which may be conflicting or confusing, and then at the end, you know, we'll be here to answer any of your questions. So these are the things that I'm going to cover, and if we can, you know, hold the questions to the end, it'll allow us time to get through this information. So we're going to talk about electricity consumption, how that's measured and how that's charged, the costing, what some of the benefits are for going solar, how the solar net metering system works, how one would determine a size of a system or have that determined for you, how one judges whether that's a reasonable size, the different components that go into a cost, how much it matters what kind of roof you have, the roof considerations, some of the other parts of the system, and costing and financing alternatives. And then I'm going to tell you about a platform that you can use to get free estimates of exactly whether solar makes sense for you. So with no more ado, I'll start firstly just for everybody may not be necessarily on the same page or understanding what the units of electricity consumption are. So just to help you understand that, your electricity consumption is measured in kilowatt hours, and when you get a bill from LADWP or from Southern California Edison, it's going to have your usage in kilowatt hours. What that is a unit of power, a kilowatt, multiplied by the number of hours for which you've been using that much power. So a typical device, a microwave is about a kilowatt. It's 1,000 watts, right? If you use it for an hour, you use 1 kilowatt hour. So that's just what those units are. Light bulbs are, 60 watts. So that's, a lot less. So the utility company can measure basically how much of that electricity you consume. And just to give you an idea, the average across the whole country is about 12.5 kilowatt hours per day for each person. And if you consider that there's about 2.5 people in every household, that amounts to about 32 kilowatt hours per day per household, or just around 1,000 a month is kind of a ballpark number for across the country. Now, of course, that's going to vary a lot regionally, because your main consumers of electricity are going to be things, in this area, they're going to be things like your air conditioning, primarily in the summer. If you have a pool, it could be a pool pump. To some extent, obviously other electronic devices, refrigerators, computers, or TVs, all of those kinds of things are going to contribute. So for 1,000 kilowatt hours a month, that would cost you, if you're with SCE, that's going to cost you about $225 a month. And if you're with LADWP, it's going to cost you somewhat less than that, around $150 a month, and that's because of different pricing structures. So we'll just look at those. This is where our electricity comes from. One reason that many people may consider going solar is because to clean up our energy use and clean up our environment. So right now, about 2/3 of our electricity is generated from fossil fuels, from coal and from burning natural gas. The rest comes from nuclear and hydroelectric primarily. Very, very small amount, less than 2% from wind and from solar currently. Under California law now, the utility companies are obligated to move to more renewable and clean energy, 33% by the year 2020. So that will change gradually over time, but you can change that yourself much quicker if you're inclined. So this is where you get your electricity consumption from. This is a typical extract from a Southern California Edison bill. And in this case, it's just showing you your average daily usage. And obviously, if you multiply that by 30 or so, you're going to get the usage per month. This is a very low usage. If you had this bill, you'd probably be very happy. So a lot of people are going to be using something like 4 times, even 10 times as much as that, particularly in the summer. But this is how the electricity is priced by Southern California Edison. So they have a baseline allowance. It's called a Tier 1 allowance, and that's up to just under about 400 kilowatt hours in a month. And that's priced at 15 cents a kilowatt hour. And then if you go beyond that, the next 100 kilowatts are priced at around 19 cents a kilowatt hour. Now, once you've gone above 500, things really start to pick up in the pricing structure. You start to pay almost twice as much. You're paying, as the baseline rate, you're paying something like 28 cents a kilowatt hour. And that's, if you get beyond that, you're up to 32 cents. Some people want to go solar to offset their entire bill, and other people may just want enough solar to take them back down so that they're just paying that baseline rate. So you don't necessarily have to do solar to offset your entire bill. Some people want to do it, as I said, just to reduce so that they're in the cheaper pricing structure. If you're with LADWP, your bill's going to look a little bit more like this. And again, they have a tiered pricing structure. And it will say somewhere on there what your average daily kilowatt hour consumption is. And again, you can multiply that to get your generation per month by multiplying by 30. Just a note, so LADWP bills are every 2 months. So when you look at your bill, you need to be careful to separate it out in what your monthly usage is. Obviously, it's going to be half what that 2-month bill is. So this little bar chart is every 2 months compared to the Southern California Edison one, which is every month. And this is how electricity is priced for most people in LADWP. There are people who run what's called a time of use charging system, which is a little bit different, but I'm going to talk about what most residences are on. So it's based on where you live, a zone 1 versus zone 2, because obviously where you live is going to, that's going to have an effect. Well, the climate is determined by where you live. So if you're in hotter places, they give you a little bit more allowance. So the San Fernando Valley has a higher allowance than coastal areas, for example. So the San Fernando Valley here would be in zone 2, and they're going to allow you the first 500 kilowatt hours in a tier 1 rate, and then above that, the next 1,000 in tier 2, etc. And here's their pricing structure. So the tier 1, you're paying about 15 cents a kilowatt hour. Tier 2, it's more like 18, and tier 3, it goes up a little bit more. So you can see that it's a much less aggressive pricing structure than Southern California Edison. Now, we don't really know how this is going to change in the future. There've been an average of something like 5% per year increases over the past few years. So it's obviously prices are going to go up. Okay, so let's think about the reasons to go solar. There are environmental benefits, but let me tell you that most people do not go solar because of environmental considerations. Most people, unless you're kind of independently wealthy and you don't necessarily, even think about the other aspects. But the environmental benefits are substantial. You offset the emissions from many 100,000 pounds of coal, and it's equivalent to the carbon sequestration that you get from a very large number of trees. But the reason that most people go solar is because of the financial benefits. And so it doesn't matter what your opinion is about the environment. Hopefully we care about it, but regardless of that, financial benefits are the most important reason. There are some energy independence reasons that one might want to go solar, and that's really that you protect yourself from further price increases in that rate structure that we just looked at. So once you're on solar, you don't have to really worry what everybody else is having to pay for electricity at that price. You're not generally energy independent in the sense that you're totally off the grid. So when you go solar, you're still connected to the grid. It's not like you're gonna get batteries and store your own electricity and then come feed off those batteries, because the battery option is a very expensive option. So unless there's some particular reason that you need to be totally off the grid, you don't really have that degree of energy independence. You're still using the transmission lines that are provided by your utility company. So this is what I mean by financial benefit, and Chris is going to go much more into the details of this later, but just to give you an idea to start with. There's currently a 30% federal tax credit on the cost of going solar. So your total cost of panels, installation, everything, you can get 30% of that money back the next time you file your taxes. And a tax credit is different from a tax deduction in that the total amount of money can come back to you in tax. So let's say that you buy a solar system that costs $20,000. Then the next time you file your taxes next year, you're going to get $6,000 back in tax, in cash, from your tax bill. Okay, you get 30% back. Now, if you don't pay $6,000 tax in a year, apart from being a very fortunate person, you can actually split that tax credit over 3 years. So you could take $2,000 each year, or you could take, the money in the years when you are earning. So it doesn't all have to come in 1 year. So given that, and utility rebates, if you're in Southern California Edison, unfortunately there aren't any more rebates available, but there are still rebates left in LA DWP, so you could still jump on board there. I think they're about $1,000. When we get to the numbers, which as I said, Chris will do at the end, you'll see that something like a typical 5 kilowatt system, that's a kind of an average residential size. Depending how much electricity you use, you could be smaller. They don't usually go much smaller than that, than 4 or so. People install up to 10 kilowatt systems, or even bigger. But a typical system around 5 kilowatts, given these numbers, for a lot of people will pay for itself in 12 years or less. And what I mean for that is you can actually buy the system with putting $0 down. You can take out a loan to pay off the system, and they have special solar loans that Chris will talk about. Take out a loan to pay off the system monthly, and your monthly payment on that loan will be less than what your current average utility payment is per month. So that's what I mean by, the financial benefits. Essentially, you're paying the same as what you would be paying on a utility bill. But at the end of 12 years, your system is paid off, and for the next so the panels are warranted for 25 years. So at least the next 13 years, your electricity is free, and panels are really expected to last more like 40 years. So you could have the next 25 years of electricity free. So that's where, the financial benefits are. Okay, so this is how the system works. It works something they call it net metering. And what that means is that your solar panels on your roof, they take in sunlight and they convert that energy to direct current, called DC electricity. However, your electricity needs in the home, all your appliances are going to run off 120 volts AC. So there's something that's called an inverter that's going to be installed that's going to convert the DC electricity to AC so that it's usable by you and by the utility company. So you are going to have, as part of the system, you're going to have an inverter box, generally located on the side of your house. They're going to install one of those. And then from your panel box, you'll be pulling off the electricity that you need or that you're using within your home at that moment. And anything that you're not using that's being generated is going to go back onto the grid via the transmission lines. It's going to go backwards to the utility company, okay, back on the grid. And what that will do is it'll spin your meter backwards. And if you have an old style meter, you can actually watch the meter spin backwards. And when you use it, you can watch it spin forwards. So it's crediting you with those kilowatt hours. It's not crediting you with dollars. You're banking your energy units. So you're banking energy when you generate more than what you use. And then later on, you get to use that credit. So the utility company is essentially acting like your storage bank. You generate kilowatt hours and then you use them later on. As I mentioned, normally the systems don't come with batteries. So you get a credit, and normally at the end of a year or so, the utility company will settle up with you. They don't want to be owing you kilowatt hours, so they don't pay you very much. It's not like you can generate energy and make money off the utility company and sell it to them. They're going to pay you very, very little for any credit that you have at the end of a year. So really it pays you to size a system according to what you use. You can't really size it more than what you're going to use, and in fact the utility company won't let you do that because they don't want to be in debt to people for electricity. So that's how the sizing works, so that your system is sized essentially to offset how much electricity you're going to use in 1 year based on, we know how much solar energy comes in. We can do modeling to find out, according to the angle of your roof and all of those different things, how much energy the system's going to generate. So normally they're sized to offset 100% or 80%, something between there, 80 to 90% of what your bill is. Okay, I just covered that. So yeah, that's when somebody gives you a size of a system that they propose to install, the size of that system will be in kilowatts. That's how it's specified. And that size, as I said, is chosen so that in the conditions of your home and your roof angle and the sunlight you're going to receive, that should generate enough electricity to cover your bill, or however much of it you choose to cover. If it's 80%, it'll be sized that way. If it's 100%, it'll be sized that way. You can't size it at more than 100%. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Chris, who's a technical expert on installations and pricing, and he'll take you through the rest of this.
All right. Thanks, Helen. All right, so I'm going to jump right into the intricacies of the systems and really get into costs. One of the major questions that I hear. Can everybody hear me in here? Yes. Okay, so one of the major questions that I hear. No. All right. Damn. All right, so one of the major questions that I hear when people are looking to go solar is that they go online and they check out how much a solar panel costs. No. Oh, cool. Hello? No. Hello? Hello? Okay. All right, so one of the things they do is they go online, they figure out how much a panel costs. And when they look at that panel cost, they take that, they multiply it by how many panels they think they'll need for their system, and they'll figure out the system size. And then they'll look at that price, and they'll go to an installer and ask an installer to price out their system. When they do that, they find a price that's about 4 times as high of what the panels actually cost. And they're a bit confused. And that's because panel price is just one of the components of the system. It actually only makes up about 25% of the total system cost. There's a lot of other components, and that's what is known as balance of system. That goes into labor, it goes into inverters, conduits, possibly financing, possibly engineering, permitting. So there's a lot of other costs that go into purchasing a solar system, and solar panels are just one of those costs. As you can see here, the panel cost has gone down tremendously over the last 6 years. It's gone down almost 80% over the last 6 years, and that's lowered the cost of solar overall. However, balance of system hasn't changed as much, and that's why you see here that the system now only makes up, the panel only now makes up about 25% of the total system cost. Panels pricing has gone down very quickly, but it has pretty much reached a bottom plateau, and it doesn't really go down that much anymore. There were some fair trade tariffs that were put in place because China was dumping panels on the market, and in order to make fair competition for American manufacturers, they put a tariff in place that has really levelized the pricing of solar. It's been still going down slightly, but not nearly as much. So a panel drops, say, over the next 3 years, panels drop 20% more in pricing. It's only going to affect your total system price by about 4% because it only makes up a fraction of what it used to make up. All right, so one of the major considerations before you go solar is, you have to think about your roof. The panels are going on your roof in most circumstances, and the condition of your roof is something that you really need to take into consideration. If your roof looks like it needs to get repaired within the next 5 years, you should re-roof at the same time you're going solar. And that's because you're going to get a tax credit on the roof as well. The portion that's going solar, you're going to get a 30% tax credit on that portion as well. So it's going to offset that extra cost of having to re-roof. Now, if, say, your roof has to get done maybe 10 years down the road, it's worth putting the panels on now. You're going to save a ton in the meantime. In 10 years from now, you have the panels taken off and you have them put back on after the roof's redone. You will get charged for that. It's typically around $500 to $2,000, depending on the installer there. Another consideration is your roof type. Your roof type is going to affect how much the system costs, and it also is going to affect how the system is installed. So on a regular composite roof, that's going to be pretty much the cheapest way to install solar. It's the easiest for installers to do. Metal is, depending on the type of metal your roof you have, it could be about the same price, could be a little bit more. But then concrete and Spanish tile, which we have a lot of out here, it does cost a little bit more for those. And there's a couple different options to install in concrete tile or Spanish tile. And that's actually, you would take all of your current shingles off, all your current tiles off, you put comp shingle underneath, they'd put the racking systems in, put the panels back on, and then surround that system with the tiles that you'd taken off. And it gives it a really flush look. It does cost a little bit more to do it that way, and that's just one of the options. The other option would be that you have the panels put off the roof by about 3 to 6 inches. They use tile hooks that goes up above the roof. It doesn't cost as much to do it that way. Both options. One of the things about having this really nice flush look is that you are going to lose a little bit of the efficiency, and that's because the panels are going to heat up more. Panels actually don't perform as well in very hot conditions, and with the flush look, it's going to not really significantly change the difference, but it will be a slight difference there. For warranties, most regional companies that are rather localized, they'll give you a 10-year workmanship warranty on your roof, and that includes leaks. Some other companies and some other third-party type models, you'll get a 1-year workmanship warranty on your roof, or they'll honor your current warranty that you have on your roof. So it's really important to look into the contract and see what is in the fine print of the contract of how long your roof is warranted for after you go solar. Another key consideration is shading. Obviously, the panels need as much sun as they could get. The more shade you have, the less production you're going to have. So if you have trees that are shading your house, it's really important to figure out if you're ready to cut some of those trees down or maybe trim them. That way, more of your house can get that sunlight. Chimneys can cause shade. Vents can cause shade. So that's also going to be an important factor of where the panels are placed. And it actually is going to play into what equipment we use as well. And I'll get into that in a little bit. The tilt and the orientation of your roof is another consideration. Panels will perform the best when they're facing directly south. West is next best, actually, and then east. So it's really important. You're probably not going to have to worry about doing that yourself, but when you're looking at your roof, figuring out where the panels are going to go, those are kind of the directions of where the panels would go. If you don't have any roof space that's facing those directions that don't have any shade on them. You can do it on north as well. You could do it, flat against the roof on north, or you can actually have a reverse tilt on it. That way they're still facing south, and that's an option as well. So there's a lot of different options out there for where the panels would go, and the tilt of the roof is also a consideration. Typically, the roofs are about 23-degree tilt, and with that tilt, it's really not going to, it's not worth putting them at a different angle. It's going to have a high enough efficiency at that tilt. All right, so as I was saying, depending on the shading, different equipment is relevant. These are two types of inverters here. This here is a microinverter. Microinverters go on every single panel. Depending on the brand, some have one for every 2 panels. But they're actually going to go on your roof underneath the panels. Then there's a string inverter, which is, and it's going to go on the side of your house, could go in your garage too as well. And it's just one unit. It's on the side of the house, usually next to the panel box. So the key functional differences of these two types of inverters is that a string inverter is going to perform a lot like a strain of Christmas lights, where it runs in a series circuit. If one panel is shaded or maybe defective somehow, it's actually going to bring down the efficiency of the whole system, not just that panel. So if you do have shade, a microinverter might be a much better option, because a microinverter runs as a parallel current, where if one panel is shaded, the rest of the panels are still going to have a very high efficiency. So those are definitely good key considerations when you're selecting what type of inverter you want to go with. In general, if you have no shade, string inverter is recommended just because it's much less expensive. It's about 35 cents less expensive per watt than a microinverter, which that translates to about a 10% difference in the cost of your system. But there are some additional considerations when it comes to inverters, and that's one of them is the warranties. Typically, string inverters come with a 10-year warranty, while microinverters comes with a 25-year warranty. The monitoring ability is also different. If you're going to go solar, it's suggested that you do get a monitoring system with your project. That way you could tell how much your system's producing. It's kind of fun to look at. You could see it go up and down over the course of the year and even the course of the day. With a string inverter, you're going to be able to monitor the whole system and what it produces. And when it comes to a microinverter, you're going to be able to actually see what each individual panel produces. So if one panel has an issue, you're going to be able to see that yourself. You're not going to have to ask the installer to come out and check it out. You're going to be able to self-diagnose that, actually. One thing that a string inverter offers that a microinverter can't offer at this point is the ability for you to actually plug into the inverter if the grid goes out. So if grid goes out, you lose your power. Even if your system's still producing energy, it's not going into your house. There's an automatic shut-off switch. But however, there is some inverters out there. SMA, TL is actually one of the more brand name ones that do this. And they're actually going to allow you to plug into that, so you can plug your fridge in or whatever else you may want to plug in. That way you can continue to use that energy off your roof. And then there's optimizers as well. SolarEdge and Tigo are pretty much the two major optimizers on the market right now. And they perform very similarly to microinverters. They're going to have the same sort of monitoring ability, the same sort of combating shading issues. But they actually work with string inverters. So you'll have a string inverter, and then you're going to have optimizers in each individual panel. And the costs for that are a little bit less than microinverters, but they're a great way to go as well. Typically, the optimizers have 25-year warranties, and the string inverters that go along with them are 12 years. All right. So there's a lot of solar panels out in the market. There's actually thousands of different models. So it does get a little bit confusing. There's a large range of efficiencies as well. Anywhere from 14 to 21% is pretty much the common range you see in the market right now. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why wouldn't everybody want to go with the 21%? And that's because they're a lot more expensive. On a per watt basis, a lot of times you're looking at almost $1 more a watt to go with, which is about 25% more for your system cost when you're going with one of those very, very high efficiency panels. The high efficiency panels do have a place, though. If you have a constrained roof where there's not enough space to fit, as much power as you want, to get as much production as you want, then you might want to go with the very high efficiency panels out there. You'll be able to get, a larger system out of a smaller area. So in general, a panel is about 18 to 20 square feet. They're about 3.5 about 3.5 feet wide by about 5 feet tall. And one panel that size might produce 250, or it might be a 250 watt panel, and another panel the same size might be 345 watt panel. So that's pretty much the range there that you're going to see in panel sizes. Same size, but one's going to produce a lot more energy than the other, and that's because it's a much higher efficiency. Okay? If you have plenty of space in your roof, it is recommended to go with, the regular efficiency panel, just because it's going to cost a lot less for the same system production. Okay? So degradation is, it basically means that panels are going to lose their production over time. When you first get the system, and what the system's producing 25 years down the road is not going to be the same amount. Panels typically degrade at about 0.7% a year. Some of the better performing panels on the market are about 0.3% a year. So they're going down that much per year. After 25 years, almost every panel on the market is warranted to produce at least 80% of what it was originally producing. Depending on the panel, you might be able to find a panel out there that produces about 85% or even higher. But they definitely will lose what they originally produce. Most panels do come with performance guarantees, and they're going to go along with that degradation over time. The guarantee is going to go down, but almost every panel on the market has a 25-year performance guarantee, but it ranges pretty much from 20 to 30 years depending on the panel, but I'd say probably about 95% have that 25-year performance guarantee, and that's from the manufacturer. Okay, so there's an array of manufacturers out there. Again, there's literally thousands of different models, and it's important to know who your manufacturer is because the different manufacturers are going to hold different warranties, and they're going to be, some are going to be stronger than others. A lot of American-made panels out there that are really good, Korean panels, and some of these panels will come with warranties that are actually guaranteed by an insurance provider. So if a case like Solyndra happens to the manufacturer you're with, you have an insurance provider that's backing you up that, if this company went out of business, you're still in good hands. So it's really important to know not just who your installer is, but who the manufacturer of your panel is. Okay, so maintenance is, well, let me say this. Solar systems are not nuclear power plants. There's not many moving parts to them. There's nothing that needs to get oiled up or anything like that. So over time, there's not really much that has to get done to your system. They're going to sit there. They're going to produce energy. With the climate we have here, it's dry. There's a lot of dust in the air. And that dust will build up, and it's called soiling. It'll cake onto the panels. And you might have to rinse those panels down every couple months to make sure your efficiency is as high as possible. Some solar companies do try to push packages where they'll come out and wash the panels for you, or maintenance packages in general. And it's not necessarily advised. It's literally you just need to take a hose and wash them down. But maintenance is, in general, very minimal for solar systems. Okay. So solar is sold by watt. And what does that mean? So for an average size system, we're going to call it 5 kilowatts, which translates to 5,000 watts, right? Let's say that system costs $20,000. So you take 5,000 watts, divide it into 20,000, you're going to get $4 a watt. And that's how much your system is costing per watt, and that's how solar is sold. It's sold basically per watt. That's how installers are going to size it up in their head. And that price per watt is pre-tax credit, pre any incentives or rebates that you're going to get in your system. So that's the price, and then you're going to take additional incentives off of that. So here's some, there's pretty much 2 different ways to go solar. I'm going to touch on this part in a minute. This is a third-party owned system, leases, PPAs, prepaids. And on this side, this is going to be purchased. So you're purchasing it, you own it, cash, loan, those are the options there. In general, national average is about $4.57 per watt. California average is actually a little bit higher, and that's because it costs a little bit more to live here. And also, there's a lot higher demand, which actually causes higher customer acquisition cost, which results in a higher overall cost in California to go solar. However, we have a lot higher electric rates, so solar makes a ton of sense still, and there's also a lot of sun here. So that's why California is the #1 solar state. And then the true price I have down here, that 3.52 cents a watt, that's what you should be able to find on the market For an average, 5 kilowatt system with no add-on, this is a possible price. So this is something you should keep in mind when you're shopping around, making sure you find that right price. That's a price that's possible, okay? And that's not a tile roof where you're having the panels stripped off and comp shingle. This is not a panel box upgrade system like that. And to touch on the panel box upgrade for a second, a panel box is an important feature that you'll have to think about when going solar as well. Your panel box is where you have all those breaker switches right next to your meter. And on that panel box, you're going to figure out how many amps your panel box is. And depending on how many amps your panel box is, you may or may not need to have it upgraded. Typically, if your panel box is 100 amps, you can go up to about a 4.25 kilowatt system. And if your system's going to be larger than that, then you're going to have to get a panel box upgrade. And you upgrade to usually about 200 amps. Typically, a panel box upgrade costs somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000. And that's an installer price typically. You can go to Lowe's, Home Depot, and find them, $3,000 and up. But usually installers give you a price around $1,500 to $2,000. And you do get the tax credit on that amount as well. So you're going to get 30% off that $1,500 to $2,000. So it's really not costing you that full amount. Okay, back to the pricing. Again, that's the price that, with no adders on, standard system, you can find that price in the market. Now, the other way to go solar is to have a third-party owned system. This means that when you go solar, you don't own it. The installer might own it, or the financier behind the installer may own the system. They're going to take the tax credit for you. We'll get into the tax credit in a little bit on whether or not that makes sense for you to go with this type of system. But in general, lease and PPA are the two main ways to go solar with a third-party owned system. And they're very similar, but they are different. With a lease, you're going to make one monthly payment, or you're going to make a monthly payment that stays or it could stay the same. It might have an escalator on it. I'll touch on that in a second. But you're going to make that payment for the next 20 years. And whatever your system produces, you're going to reap all the benefits of that energy. And then the other way to go solar is with a third-party owned system is with a PPA. And with a PPA, you're going to pay a certain cents per kilowatt hour for that system. Whatever it produces is what you're going to pay. Okay? Now, this is some standard pricing that you're going to find in the market to go with a lease or a PPA. It's 15 cents per kilowatt hour with a 2.9 cents escalator. So that means right now you're paying, that first tier in Edison is 15 cents. Then it's 19 cents, 28 cents, 32 cents. So right away you're paying 15 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's about the same as your tier 1. It's saving you money over that 19 cents per kilowatt hour. However, this has a 2.9 escalator on it. That means that rate of 15 cents per kilowatt hour is going up at 2.9 cents a year, or at 2.9% a year, which is generally not in your best interest. One of the reasons that companies do push this is it makes it look very attractive up front. You get this really low rate up front, and then as time goes on, well, that rate's creeping up. So be careful. Look at what actually is going into your contract when you're going solar, whether you have an escalator on there or not. In general, I would suggest don't go with an escalator. In the long run, it's not going to pay off. So if you don't go with an escalator, a rate that you can find in the market in general, again, this is for a very standard system, is about 18 cents per kilowatt hour. Okay? And then a true price that I have here is about 17 cents a kilowatt hour. If you find a good deal in the market, you get the right installer to do it for you, you should be able to find that price. All right, so we're going to kind of jump into the different ways to go solar. And I want to explain a little bit more about the loan option before I go too far into this. One really popular way to go solar is with a solar loan. There's different solar companies, solar or banks out there that have created loan packages that work specifically for solar. So how one of the most common options work is that it's a 12-year option. You pay for the full price of you make monthly payments on the full price of the system up front. So you pay $0 down up front, and then you make monthly payment for the full price of the system. So again, if the system's $20,000, you're making payments on that. Once you receive that tax credit back, so you're on a $20,000 system, you'll have a $6,000 tax credit. You'll take that tax credit, you'll apply it towards the loan, and you'll have one free reamortization. And what that means is that instead of making payments on that $20,000, you're now making payments on that $14,000, which would probably be about $13,000 at this point. And your payments are going to be a lot less, and it's going to look really, really attractive, the savings, way more attractive. And that's one of the more common loans in the market right now. It's an unsecured loan. It's a really easy loan to get. For credit scores, for both leases and for loans, you're looking at least a 650 credit score and up. If you're over 740, you'll qualify for usually the top tier in almost every financing package out there. If you don't have a 650 credit score, there's some other options out there that are available. One of them is through the PACE program, which is also known as California First in this area. And that's that you take the cost of the solar system and you wrap it into your property taxes. So you make payments twice a year through your property tax. The interest on those loans is tax deductible. And typically, you could find different ranges for that. You could do it 5 years, or you could do up to like 20 years. So there's different ranges on that, and the payments are wrapped into your property tax. However, the rates are a little bit higher, which is one reason that it's sometimes suggested to avoid that. The rates are a little bit higher to go with that program. So make sure you do look at the details of that. The most popular loan I was just talking about is a $0 down, 12-year loan at 2.99% interest. It does have a financing fee on it, but it's really the best deal you can get on the market right now. You also can go out and finance the system yourself through a refi, cash-out refi, a second mortgage. Admiral's Bank is one of the popular ones in solar that does second mortgages. Obviously, there's a little bit more paperwork involved, but you will get a good deal that way. And there's a plethora of different companies that do offer these different loan packages. So I just wanted to make that clear that there's a lot of different loan options out there for purchase. And then leasing, there's a lot of different leasing companies out there as well. They all have different packages and different things they offer. Okay, so I'll kind of jump into this chart now. So performance guarantee, all these different options, cash, loan, lease, they're all going to have performance guarantee from the manufacturer, okay? So if you own the system, the manufacturer is warrantying that system for 25 years. With a lease or PPA, a lot of times the companies that you are going with to get that lease or PPA are going to give you a production guarantee on their system. However, these contracts are about 20 to 30 pages. A lot of times in these contracts, you're going to find out that, okay, sure, they're going to give you a production guarantee on that, but at the end of the day, when you look at the details, they're not going to give you the same price per watt that you were actually paying for your energy. So maybe you're paying 15 cents, 19 cents, whatever it is for your energy. They might give you a rate back around 6 or 7 cents per kilowatt hour of what they promised was going to produce that doesn't produce. So it's really important to read into these contracts. There's a lot of stuff in these contracts for the lease and PPA options. Okay, so $0 down. You can do that for, obviously not cash. Cash you're paying out of pocket. But you can do that for loan and lease options. You can go $0 down, pay nothing up front, and then month to month, you should be paying total payments less than what your original electricity bill was. So with a loan, you're making your loan payment, you're making your leftover electric bill. You might have a small leftover electric bill, and that total payment is going to be less than what you were originally paying for electricity. Okay, so if you have a large tax liability, meaning you can use that tax credit, it's recommended in almost every scenario to go with a purchase. With a purchase, you're going to own the system, which means it's going to add value to your house. It's going to eventually be paid off, and you're not going to have to make any more payments on it, which is great. Systems are estimated to last somewhere between 30 and 40 years. So although you're only making payments maybe for 12 years, you're going to have a large amount of savings coming towards you. Okay? Okay, so if you do plan to move in the next 5 years, it also is normally recommended to go with a purchase. And that's because with a purchase, again, you own the system. It's going to add value to the house. And houses actually sell about 20% faster if you do have solar on your roof. So that's one of a great point to make, that you're going solar, somebody's buying the house from you, they're looking at their mortgage payments, and then they're looking at a little bit higher mortgage payment because you own that system, but they see that little bit higher amount is nowhere near what they otherwise would be paying for that electric bill. So somebody's saving money right away by buying that house from you that does have solar on it. With a lease, you obviously don't own the system. You'll have to transfer that lease over to the new buyer. And sometimes it can get a little difficult when you're transferring that lease. They may qualify to purchase your house, but they don't always qualify to take over the system, believe it or not. They do look at FICO 2 scores when they're looking at lease, so it's not something you're going to see on Experian. It's a different FICO score they look at, and just because they take over the payments, just because they could buy your house doesn't mean they could take over those payments. And if you have to buy out the lease, it can be very, very expensive. There's usually a very high price per watt to buy out a lease. Yep. Okay. All right, so added value to the house, obviously it's going to add value to your house. Okay. So the last one there, no income. If you don't have any income, you don't pay much taxes, you're either retired, maybe you're self-employed, you deduct a lot of taxes, maybe you're not employed right now, then a lease is a great option for you because you can't use that tax credit, somebody else is going to use it for you, and you're going to still see the savings, the total savings of as if you did take advantage of that tax credit. Okay, so here's an example of a person in Southern California, Edison, with a $200 a month bill, and they have a 6 kilowatt system, okay? So upfront cost, this is after the tax credit, would be about $14,500, okay? If they went with a loan or a lease, they can go with $0 down. And here's where the payments really start to make a lot of sense. Solar payment, $135. Your leftover electric bill is $25, so you're paying $160 a month. You were paying $200 a month. And after 12 years, you're going to own that system outright. You'll have no more payments, and you'll just have this small leftover bill left. With the lease, same thing, $110 makes it $135, so your savings are actually higher day one. But remember, you are making those payments for 20 years, so it is a longer lifetime. You don't own the system at the end, so it's usually not as great of a deal for you. As you can see in these lifetime savings, a purchase, you save almost double the amount you do as a lease. Lease is still a great option if you can't use that tax credit, though, because it will have great savings that way. But yeah, over the lifetime of the system, 25 years, savings are astronomical. Okay, this is a little bit larger system, $200 bill, 8 kilowatt system. You can see that your solar payment, okay, this actually is a great example. Actually, this is DWP, but still a great example that as the system gets larger, you might have not as much of monthly savings, but usually your lifetime savings are a little bit more. This is obviously a different utility, so the rates are much lower in DWP, which is why you're not seeing as high savings here, but there are still very significant savings over the lifetime of the system.
Hi, I'm from company Solar Express, locally in city of Calabasas. For past 12 years, we've been doing solar systems, photovoltaic, solar pool heating, and solar water heaters in city of Calabasas and within the 50 or 100 miles radius.
So my name is Max Avram. I'm the CEO of Pick My Solar. We're an online marketplace that connects homeowners to solar installers. Our bidding platform finds the best solar deals in the market for homeowners. We're like LendingTree, Kayak, or Expedia for residential solar market, and we make sure that homeowners find the best valuable deals in the market.
Hello, my name is Ryan Pickering, and I work for SunPower Corporation. We are a high-efficiency solar panel manufacturing and installation firm. We're out here today talking about solar power design. Not all solar power systems are the same, and every house is different, so we're here providing custom designs for high-efficiency solar power systems to offset as much electricity bill and add as much green power to the grid as possible.
I'm with the Energy Network, and we implement the home upgrade rebates and incentives program that is offered by Energy Upgrade California. So you can receive up to $6,500 in rebates and incentives for things such as water heaters, insulation, air sealing. So there are several measures that you can choose from to receive rebates and incentives, and they're available to everybody in the state of California.
I am with Restart Solar. We are a SunPower elite dealer located here in Southern California. I live in the local community, Oak Park, and we have been in business over 28 years, specializing in systems that are designed to offset your electricity use and help you go green, save you money, increase the value of your home, and do good things for the environment.